Live from WKYC Studios, this is 3 News at 6.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of 3 News. I'm Neil Fisher. Tonight, a shooting at a party in Mansfield left 2 teenagers dead and 4 more injured. Emma Henderson is in Mansfield and has the latest.
According to Mansfield police, they believe between 30 and 50 people were at this house last night when shots rang out. A 17 and an 18-year-old are now dead, and the 4 victims that were injured are between the ages of 14 and 19. This happened close to midnight last night in the 800 block of Ferndale Road. Officers fielded multiple calls about shots fired, and when they arrived on scene, that's when they saw the 2 teenage victims who had died. Mansfield police say they collected a multitude of evidence from the scene, including guns and drugs.
It just seems like it was a party, and somebody walked up into it, came up into it, and started shooting. We don't know if there was something that happened earlier in the night or something happened at the front door. There was some argument going on. We don't have that information yet.
Mansfield police say, according to witnesses, a group of people fled the scene both on foot and in cars and weren't able to get a good description. If you know anything about this case, you are encouraged to come forward, and we have information about the specific detectives that you need to reach out to right now at WKYC.com. In Mansfield, Emma Henderson, 3 News.
New tonight, a 46-year-old man is dead and another man has been seriously injured after a shooting outside of a bar in Akron. It happened early this morning at Legends Lounge on East South Street. Akron police say the identity of the victims has not been released and no arrests have been made. Now to Maine, a multi-day manhunt to find the suspect accused of shooting and killing 18 people Wednesday night has ended. Police found the suspect dead last night. NBC's Chris Pallone has the latest.
It has been an unseasonably warm, beautiful fall day here in Lewiston, Maine, and people have been out and about enjoying it after 2 days of staying home at the urging of police. Things appear to be returning to normal here now that the man responsible for the deadliest mass shooting in this state's history has been found dead. But of course, in reality, things are far from normal. People here are still in shock, grieving for the 18 people killed Wednesday night, the oldest 76 years old, the youngest just 14. Today, investigators revealed more about the manhunt for Robert Card. They found his body Friday night in a storage container at a recycling plant where he used to work, not far from where he abandoned his car after the massacre. Police say Card shot himself. His family told NBC News they had grown increasingly concerned about Card's mental health in recent months, and investigators say despite not being able to find evidence Card had ever been involuntarily committed to a mental health treatment center, they believe those struggles contributed to Wednesday's massacre.
What I've read and what I've seen is that the individual felt like people were talking about him. It may even appear that there were some voices in play here. And we don't believe that any of that is accurate. I think that led him specifically back to those 2 specific locations.
Now that Card has been found, people in this community can finally gather together to lean on each other and grieve all that has been lost. In Lewiston, Maine, Chris Pallone, NBC News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the military has started a second stage in the war against Hamas. More Israeli tanks rolled into northern Gaza overnight. This morning, the Israeli military said it had expanded its military operations with troops in the field and that its warplanes had hit 150 underground Hamas targets, including tunnels. Israel reissued an urgent call for Palestinians to evacuate.
Attention, citizens of Gaza, listen carefully. This is an urgent military advisory from the Israel Defense Forces. For your immediate safety, we urge all residents of northern Gaza and Gaza City to temporarily relocate south.
Those living in Gaza are being forced to flee to the south of the Gaza Strip, where there's very little food, water, or shelter. And tomorrow here in Northeast Ohio, members of different faith groups across the area are hosting a prayer vigil for peace and healing in the Middle East and in our communities.
Work is so important, pushing against hate and what hate-filled individuals and peoples want to do.
The vigil will take place at the Fairmount Presbyterian Church in Cleveland Heights. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, we have more information about the event on our website, WKYC.com. The United Auto Workers have reached a tentative agreement with Stellantis to end the union strike against the automaker. If ratified by a majority of the UAW workers, the new contract will give Stellantis employees a 25% raise over the next 4.5 years. And like the Ford deal reached earlier in the week, the Stellantis agreement gives workers cost of living adjustments that will push the total wage increase to well over 30%. Local workers we talked to at the Stellantis plant in Streetsboro said they're happy the strike is ending.
I'm glad they made strides. And like I said, some of the stuff that they even were asking or offered is a hard pill to swallow. But, you know, you had to take the whole basket of apples, even if there's a couple of bad ones on that bottom, you know.
The strike is in its 6th week, with the walkout continuing for UAW workers at General Motors. Time now for a check of the weather, and as Halloween approaches, it seems we may have some big changes in store. Meteorologist Peyton Domschke joins us. It doesn't look great.
It could look better, but it's very Midwest of us to have the idea of maybe a little rain, maybe a wet snowflake or two. Just in time for Halloween. I know. We'll get to the nitty-gritty of Halloween specifics toward the end of the forecast. But today, I actually, it was quite the reality check. We hit a high temperature of 67 degrees just before 5 this morning, and our low temperature will be found in the 50s, and truthfully, it's probably TBD as we go through the day today. Our average high this time of the year is right about 60 degrees, so we were below that through the afternoon, and we'll continue to do so as we go about the evening. But when did that front exactly pass? Well, it passed anywhere between about 6 to 8 this morning. Our temperatures dropped about 10 degrees in the span of 2 hours, and we've coasted in the 50s ever since. I think overnight tonight, a lot of you will find yourself back in the upper 40s, but for the time being, we're locked in the clouds. It's damp, it's cool. We've got a northerly breeze, and that is helping reinforce that cool breeze across the area too, and just the chill that's present. We got rain that returns overnight, and it's all associated with that exact same position of the front that did pass. It's kind of going to stall there, so everything is just riding right along it. It basically is functioning as a conveyor belt here. So by tomorrow morning, we get a decent chunk of some wet weather to move through. I think we get some steady rain through the morning. In your National Summer big picture forecast, we will have a midday break, but then as we approach the day on Monday, we basically do the whole thing over again. Except I think this one is a little earlier in the timing of things, but the roads are still going to be damp for your Monday morning drive, so maybe a lot for a little extra time. That does not mean we're completely done with wet weather for the day on Monday. I think we have a lake effect here and there. It will be far and few between, maybe a little sunshine too to break out mixed on in there. But by Tuesday, we're talking partly sunny to mostly cloudy conditions for the bulk of the day, so your Halloween doesn't look too shabby if the kiddos want to wear their costume to school, or maybe you've got early trick-or-treating set up. This is the next system we have to watch. It could potentially bring in a little rain, a little snow mix late Tuesday, which is Halloween, into the day on Wednesday. Again, we'll talk about a little bit more of the nitty-gritty coming up here in just a second, but this is a timestamp of 6 a.m. tomorrow morning and what the radar is likely to look like, basically overtaken by wet weather across northeast Ohio. If you're trying to put 2 and 2 together, we do the whole thing over again by Monday, so maybe generally speaking, 1/2 inch to 1 inch in wet weather expected here over the next 24 to 48 hours, maybe some isolated higher totals, but we dry out through the middle of your Sunday, which is fantastic, but you'll notice the temperatures, they're not breaking the low to mid 50s. We will stay plenty chilly, and then again, we get another hit of some of that wet weather come Monday morning, and we still have that north wind, so we will have some breaks in the overcast as we go through time on Monday, but Halloween, the big kahuna of the forecast, what you want to know. I've got 2 longer range models, and what we really look for as meteorologists is a consensus, things to line up and things to match. They both know that something is coming. What they don't know is the exact timing. Again, generally speaking, we are talking about the idea of some rainfall and potentially some wet snowflakes. The American model, the GFS run for 8 p.m., which is in the middle of trick-or-treating for some of you, wants it to be a little snowier. I know a lot of you want to know some things. Well, the exact arrival time is still TBD, and totals, if any, if any, are still unknown thanks to the lack of timing and the effort there. I think things really get themselves together for very early Wednesday morning, and that's our best chance at seeing maybe a wet snowflake or two. But a big friendly reminder, the ground is still very warm, so a lot of this is going to melt on contact, especially if we have rain to mix on in. That basically limits the chances too. In short, though, if the kids are going out for trick-or-treating, which happens to be on Tuesday, but I know a lot of folks have things planned for the weekend as a whole, Tuesday you're still going to need to layer the kids up. Our high temperature is going to be in the mid-40s, and overnight we are going to have temperatures close to freezing, and then we get another precious hour of sleep next weekend.
I could take 55 and 59 on Friday and Saturday. I'll take those just the next like 4 weeks.
Okay, well, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it, if we could copy and paste every day to be the same?
Right. All right. Peyton, thank you. Appreciate it. The cleanup continues in Mexico after Hurricane Otis made landfall earlier this week. Otis destroyed beachfront hotels in Acapulco, a popular resort town, and left 39 people dead. But there was little time to evacuate because hours before landfall, forecast models showed Otis being a tropical storm or weak Category 1. Then, after rapid intensification, Otis strengthened into a Cat 5, becoming the strongest hurricane ever to make landfall in the eastern Pacific.
Hurricane Center missed it. I might miss some because these rapid intensification cycles are happening at the drop of a hat, because of the hot sea surface temperatures, which are record-setting hot across the planet.
Increasing research, including one study published just last week around Atlantic hurricanes, shows this type of behavior is soaring globally as our oceans heat up from burning fossil fuels. Former Vice President Mike Pence is out of the 2024 race for president. The unexpected announcement came today during the annual Republican Jewish Coalition convention in Las Vegas. Pence saying he realizes that now is not his time.
I'm leaving this campaign, but let me promise you, I will never leave the fight for conservative values, and I will never stop fighting to elect principled Republican leaders to every office in the land. So help me God.
The former vice president's campaign never gained traction in a crowded Republican primary field dominated by support for former President Donald Trump. Coming up tonight, after the conclusion of Ohio State and Wisconsin on NBC, Nick Camino and Ted Ginn Jr. will host primetime postgame on WKYC. Make sure you're tuning in for a complete breakdown of the big game. Primetime postgame will air right after the game ends on NBC. That'll wrap up this special edition of 3 News on this Saturday. Have a great weekend.